Goodbye. We're not far.
You pin that box, be on your ear, Joel. Oh, really, cheap, good on the morning. I chill away. I chill back, get your routine, now. You meet the lake. On your in the room, get the egg. On Tiara, walking you. I chill you. You meet the lake. On your in the room, get the egg. On Tiara, walking you. I chill you. You meet the lake. Toyina Pia wala rumbe kain ping William Toyina Will wala Pibor kain ping William Toyin Juba wala Tori ayam yo kain ping William Toyin Benti wala Kwaju kaya wow kain ping William Toyin Malkal wala Pinyaram kayin ping William
Pandile legisted in a nyam baiban Pinyara wed in a nyam wawadia Pindile legisted in a nyam baiban Pinyara wed in a nyam wawadia In a bull wearing in bull lekin When a bull rally jam when a bull was fine And you're the garden good young politok I got a ding of my bog with young politok Kubolo makur kumajong makur Abere medit kaganyo ba kabing pinom And you're the garden good young politok I got a ding of my bog with young politok Kubolo makur kumajong makur Abere medit kaganyo ba kabing pinom Atijal dung ajwer abu jajwir Abu yeloy Abu jajwir Abu yeloy Bu jajwir babijal Amerika Abu jajwir babijal China Abu jajwir babijal London Abu jajwir babijal Dubai Abu jajwir Abu yeloy
Toyina Pia wala rumbe kain ping William Toyina Will wala Pibor kain ping William Toyin Juba wala Tori ayam yo kain ping William Toyin Benti wala Kwaju kaya wow kain ping William Toyin Malkal wala Pinyaram kayin ping William Media.
Welcome to Lake State Media and South Sudan Eagle Media. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are tuning in. You are all highly welcome to this very special forum or conversation with Professor Dr. Jok Madun Jok and Majok Makur Malak. For the people in the clubhouse, just keep your questions and we will come back to you later. If you have any question, just keep it with you. And later on, we will give the floor to you and for our followers as well in YouTube, Facebook. Pin in your questions later after we have a length of conversation in between here. Majok Makur, pick up from here and welcome our guests and all our audience and followers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isaac Tiampol. To our viewers, welcome to Lex Media Beyond Boundaries, wherever you are tuning in. And I have two few things to ask from you as the viewers. Number one, you need to share the live show so that we reach out to many South Sudanese and those who are not even South Sudanese, but they are supporters or fans of that nation, which could possibly be from the East Africa countries. Secondly, in the studio, we have one of the prominent Professor Jok Madud Jok. Most of you know him. and he has been actively participating in the affairs of our country, politically, socially, and economically. He always discussed the ideals of the country on how the country should run. And today's topic will basically be on the decisions made on the 15th or 14th by Honorable Nhial Deng Nhial to freeze his membership from the SPLM as a ruling party and as the mother party. And he formed his own political party, which is South Sudan Salvation Movement. And subsequently, he declared joining allegiance to the People's Alliance, which was already existing and negotiating with the government in Nairobi through Tumaini Peace Initiative. Kindly, most of you will be here to listen very keenly to the ideas that Professor will put forward on how these decisions came into being and what will be the impact of this. And thereafter, we may venture into some two other critical issues of our country, the trials of the first Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar Teng, which is ongoing in Juba under the special court, and we also look at the issue of the economy of our country, because South Sudan is now set everybody into a worry mood. We are worried of that country, and we will touch base on that. Kindly permit me to give Professor 2 minutes or so to give us his opening remark before we dive into the conversations of today. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for creating your time to join us. The chance is yours.
Thank you, Majuk, and Isaac, and Abraham Adid, and the entire Lakes State Media family, and the viewers. Thank you for creating this time today. I can just say at the outset that it's very clear that South Sudanese need a space where they can talk and converse and exchange views and debate, disagree and agree, but do all of it amicably, tolerably, and to create a situation where people are talking. It means that it limits the possibilities of conflict, especially violent conflict. And we know that our country is suffering a great deal from episodes of violence. And we think that being able to converse is one of the best ways to reduce the level of acrimony and level of violence. The topic we are discussing today, of course, is a very important one in terms of how it contributes to the conversation about the future of the country. The decision by one prominent SPLM member, Nhial Deng Nhial, to break away from the party is a fundamental issue. So let us converse and talk about it and discuss it with open mind, and see how we can steer our country in a direction that will bring stability in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. To our viewers, you have chance of asking questions under the comment section, and the Lex media team will display your question later on, and Professor will be in a position to answer you accordingly. Professor, actually, you have mentioned two things. Number one, that we have asked South Sudanese to dialogue and have a conversation. And through that conversations, that's where we will find the solutions to our political crisis, which has led even to the sexual divisions of the citizens of that country. And move to our topic at hand, Professor. We have seen several things happen under the leadership of the SPLM. And something happened 5 days ago, of which most of the citizens were not expecting it to happen at this critical moment, because citizens were looking at the SPLM to move forward on how to resolve the challenges politically and economically, not to break away. But this idea has made it the citizens to wonder and ask themselves several questions. And the first questions in our list today, Professor, is can you tackle or tell us what motivated our Honorable Nhial Deng Nhial's decisions to leave the SPLM, which he has been born into, and others may say he has been a member of the SPLM in his mother womb before he was born. And then after he was born, he grew up in the SPLM to the age he is in and form his own political party. Do you believe, Professor, this might be due to ideological differences or the political challenges internally of the SPLM or the dissatisfactions with the current leadership of the SPLM as a ruling party?
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that is a fundamental question. Why did Abraham Nhial Deng Nhial decide at this juncture to leave the SPLM? And why now? And in my view, this was not surprising to me. Shocking as it may be, it wasn't surprising to me because, in fact, for years and years now, since 2013, people have been talking about possibility of Nhial Deng Nhial becoming the successor to Salva Kiir for the presidency of the country. He has been a very popular person, partly because of his family background, being born to a prominent liberation leader, William Deng Nhial, but also having grown up in a political environment in Khartoum where South Sudanese were organizing themselves to challenge the Sudanese state. So his background lends itself to the kind of popularity that he has enjoyed, and then joined the SPLM, SPLA, and became a prominent member, working together very closely next to our late leader, Dr. John Garang Demabio, and representing the SPLM in all the negotiations with the Sudan's government, and becoming a very prominent member of the political bureau of the SPLM and holding many constitutional posts in the country, a Minister of Defense, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister in the Office of the President. And so his popularity is born of that background. But in the last few years, at least since 2013, there has been growing frustration within the SPLM and outside the SPLM, the overall membership of the SPLM in the public. People have become increasingly frustrated with the way the SPLM has run the country. Most particularly in terms of the vision of the SPLM, which was supposed to lead to thanking and rewarding the people of South Sudan for that gigantic effort they made to make this country possible. But eventually getting disappointed in terms of the services not being delivered, in terms of any clarity with regards to what ideology the SPLM now is following. There is no clarity as to what is their development program. And then there is the question about what has happened to all the money that the country was born with. South Sudan was born as a middle income country. And but now has become the epicenter of poverty, a poverty that some people will say is manufactured by some prominent individuals in the government and in the ruling party, the SPLM. Most particularly, the flagrant waste theft and mismanagement of oil money, so much that there is very little to show for that money when it comes to people's welfare today. The World Bank said recently that 91% of South Sudanese are living below poverty line, which is measured by how much people spend a day to get by from day to day. They live on less than $2 a day. And that is shocking for a country that was born as a middle income country, a country that was born into so much promise in terms of using those resources, those oil revenues to fire up the engine of agriculture, to create security services that protect everybody equitably in terms of building infrastructure like road network, river transport, and aviation, so that South Sudanese can do business, can travel freely and safely from one corner to the next. All of that was the engine of the euphoria that people felt on that day when South Sudan was declared an independent state. But all of it has been quashed, has been wasted, destroyed, sometimes deliberately, in terms of how much money some individuals have stolen and taken out of the country. So the decision by Nhial Deng was born of that frustration. And to that extent, I don't think it is shocking. I don't think it's surprising. People expected it. In fact, some people will say this should have come 5, 7, 8, 10 years ago. And the fact that he stayed in that climate for all these years, it condemns him more than the decision he has made today. And many people are now saying, yes, this was supposed to be his, he should have done this sooner. And that now that he has done it, people are wondering, is it too late in the day? Is this decision really going to rescue South Sudan, rescue the ruling party, rescue the government of Salva Kiir, or is it going to make it worse? That is the question people are grappling with today. Some people say, better late than never, right? So yes, it may be too late, but there is still a possibility of using this to steer the country away from the mayhem and the destruction that it has experienced over the last 20 years.
Thank you so much, Professor, for giving that intellectual and comprehensive analysis on what prompted Honorable Nhial Deng Nhial to leave the SPLM party and form his own political party. There are two things, Professor, you have mentioned. Number one, you have mentioned how the country has really been run and the challenges being imposed on the people deliberately by the leadership. And you have mentioned the conversations around Nhial Deng Nhial for the last few years. People were assuming that he might be a successor to our president. And lately, we have seen the new arrivals of new blood into the SPLM political party. Do you think, Professor, Honorable Nhial's decision came as a frustration or being betrayed, or is because his hope has not been guided successfully by the president?
Yeah, I think that is an important question. Nhial's decision and current position is born of those two, both. One, the idea that the party is being restructured to bring in new faces, new blood, as you said. But in doing so, the president has essentially dismantled the structures of the party, including the constitution of the party itself. in the process of trying to bring in new people, Nhial Deng sees that process as contravening the fundamental structures of the party, which means that decisions in the party should have been made through the party structures, including the political bureau in which Nhial is a member, including the National Liberation Council, including holding a convention, and sticking to the articles of the law of the constitution of the party. And so perhaps that is one of the main reasons why Nhial made this decision, is having watched the party essentially being destroyed by the president, by the chairman, and sometimes doing it using his executive presidential powers rather than his powers as the chairman of the party. So the president has really weakened the party through some of the actions that he has engaged in, including the refusal to hold the National Convention, and including the fact that the political bureau has not met in years. So that is one. The second, of course, is that Nhial himself also increasingly felt sidelined or marginalized, if you wish to use that popular term in our political language. He maybe felt that he is being supplanted by people that he sees as not having done much for the party. Perhaps you can even say jealousy, that to see some people rising and overstepping him and other leaders. In that sense, he would not be. I don't think that is the right way to look at it. The best way to look at that development would have been for him to speak directly and clearly, even through a declaration like this, to criticize what he sees as going wrong in the party, instead of breaking away. But all the same, breaking away is also a political statement, and of course, it's a criticism of the party. So then, what does he want? Does he really? Because in his declaration, he said that he is leaving the SPLM for the time being, but not entirely, right? That he's leaving the SPLM to create South Sudan Salvation Movement in order to use it to try to reform the SPLM. That's a kind of a twisted argument, and it doesn't really help him become the articulate leader, the leader with good ideas for the future of the country that people expect him to be. How do you create a party in order to reform another party? It doesn't seem to work very well in terms of your ideas. If you wanted to really challenge the SPLM, he could have left whatever ideas that he had for the SPLM, he could have taken them to his new party so that he can contribute to the political evolution of the country into a democratic republic by bringing whatever ideological ideas he had in the SPLM and then coming to SSM to implement them. But creating a party in order to reform the whole party doesn't seem to be a clear-headed way of articulating your program, your mission, your ideology. And so when you ask the question about what really prompted him at the last minute to do that, whether it is ideological difference with the SPLM, I don't think there is anything ideological about this decision. This decision is born of frustration with the way the country is run, and it is born of the feeling that the SPLM all cadres are being sidelined by people who have not contributed a lot to the movement. And I think what he should have done was to then say, this is how I see it, this is how I see the country should go, and we will pursue this program through South Sudan Salvation Movement, and let the SPLM, let us challenge the SPLM such that if it decides to reform itself and be a better party, be a party of John Garang, be a party of Salva Kiir, be a party of South Sudan, a liberation movement, turning into a ruling party and managing the country, managing the country's resources. If SPLM wants to do that, let it now be put on the test, to being put to test to do that in order to prove me wrong. Nhial would have said that, but he didn't.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor, for that. We'll move to the next questions. Professor, what does this mean for the unity and the strength of the SPLM party? Does it mean that it will affect the SPLM unity, or in other words, will it give further historic difficulties for the SPLM to maintain its power as the ruling party?
It weakens the SPLM, no doubt about it. I think SPLM cannot be reformed by breaking away from it. So I'm not crying, I'm not shedding tears for the SPLM. I'm simply saying his decision and breakaway have revealed in a formal way, through the mouth of the core membership of the SPLM, what SPLM has done wrong. Something that we have been talking about. South Sudanese have been talking for good 14 years since independence about how the SPLM has wronged them. And they were always, these criticisms were always pushed aside as coming from sort of enemies of the party, perhaps even ungrateful citizens. But for this criticism to now come from within, from the core of that party, vindicates those of us who were critical of the SPLM. Because our criticism of the SPLM in the past was not with an eye to destroy it. At least myself, when I criticized the SPLM, my intention was not for the SPLM to dismantle. My intention was for the SPLM to make itself the party that we all expected it to be, the party that we wished it to be, the party that freed our country. And we were asking the SPLM, freed South Sudan in order to do what with it? If you were just going to free South Sudan and then govern it in ways that are worse than the way we were during the colonization, then of course we have to challenge, we have to question the legitimacy of the SPLM. So Nhial Deng has definitely weakened the SPLM, but SPLM should be weakened because it's not serving the people. It's not responding to the needs of people. And so being weakened perhaps is the way to move South Sudan in a different direction from the direction the SPLM has been putting it on ever since the end of the Liberation War. So if the SPLM really wants to challenge, push back on what Nhial Deng is saying, let the SPLM show the people of South Sudan how Nhial is wrong.
Thank you, Professor. To that will bring us to two questions, which you mentioned, some of them, to make clarification further. You said the decisions really weakened the SPLM, and SPLM deserve to be weakened because we are seeing SPLM moving in a very negative directions, and we don't expect the ruling party or the mother party to take that route. According to you, Professor Jock, what advice could you give to the SPLM ruling party currently on how to react to the decision made by Honorable Nhial Deng Nhial.
Mhm.
Number two, that will follow that. Do you think the new political party, South Sudan Salvation Movement, formed by Honorable Nhial Deng Nhial, do you think this political party will reshape the political landscape of our country? Thank you, Prof.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, on the first question about whether um, the SPLM is going to be,
Yeah, what should be the reaction
what
if
should
you could
be
advise them?
the reaction to this situation is, well, first of all, somebody said a couple of weeks ago in another interview I did that if political leaders of South Sudan, the party leaders, the SPLM and the rest of them, if they make the people of South Sudan the center of their attention, they can't go wrong. You can't go wrong if you build everything you do with a view to improving the lives of South Sudanese, right? If that is your mandate that you put to yourself, if that is the challenge you put on your neck, that I am going to do everything I can to improve the lives of people of South Sudan, there is no way you can go wrong with that. So if the SPLM really wants to continue to meet with the love that the people of South Sudan have given it over the years, then it has to make the people of South Sudan the center of their attention. Basic things. Right now, if you look at health infrastructure in South Sudan, hospitals have become more like death traps rather than places of safety, including hospitals within Juba. Like the biggest referral hospital in the country is Juba Teaching Hospital. But if you go into that place, you are more likely to catch a disease there than be cured of the disease you came with. If you look at education, we keep talking about universities, but we have forgotten about primary education. 2.8 million South Sudanese kids are still outside this classroom today in this country. That's criminal for a country with the resources that it has, for a country that was born of war and wrestled off the jaws of a very big, monstrous enemy called Sudan, for a country with that history, to spend 20 years without improving one single teacher training college is criminal politically. And so if the SPLM really want to go back to the days of its glory, it has to prioritize the welfare of the people of South Sudan. 5 major things. Education is one, healthcare is another, infrastructure, economic development programs, and security and limiting the level of violence. 5 things. If you do those things, what else could we expect from a political party, for a liberation party? That would be my advice, that they go back to the drawing board and decide the fate of South Sudan. Because a country can only be a country and a nation by prioritizing its citizens, its people. What is a country? What a piece of land is nothing if it is not about the people who live on that land. So if you don't prioritize the people, it was John Garang himself who said that if we don't deliver things to our people, they will push us into the sea, even though we don't have a sea. Right? John Garang said that. So what can SPLM show now that it has honored the words of its co-founder, Dr. Garang? What can it say? What can it show for itself? So that is what I would say to the SPLM, to go back to paying attention to the people of South Sudan and limit the level of political rivalry for jobs and for resource, and limit self-enrichment, which has been on an onward march since the beginning. In fact, between 2005 and 2013, South Sudanese leaders were busy simply siphoning money out of the country. And the SPLM let it happen. The SPLM led the charge. The SPLM actually led the way, beginning with the money that was given to the SPLM by NCP, by Khartoum, $60 million given to the SPLM as a kind of a welcome money for it to set itself up. That money gone. Not even the SPLM office was built. The foundation of the initial SPLM office, the secretariat that was started in Juba, is still a foundation to this day. Still just a mere foundation, nothing. Money is gone. Anyway, so that is that. Second, your question about whether
the new party formed by Honorable Nhial Deng Nhial will reshape the political landscape.
Right. South Sudan Salvation Movement could reshape the direction of the country, but we don't know yet, because all we saw is a declaration of its forming, of its foundation. But we haven't seen the political work that must go into it in order for it to be a meaningful party, to be a progressive, non-violent political movement aimed at redirecting the discourse, the redirecting the conversation away from acrimony and war and political rivalries towards unity of purpose, uniting the people of South Sudan, saving them from violence that is ongoing, saving our children from dying from preventable diseases. If you wanted to shape that conversation, I think it can be done, but we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen what that political action, what that political work will entail. Who are going to be the members of that party? What is going to be the structure of that party? What is going to be the ideology of that party? What is going to be the laws or the rules and regulations of that party? How is it going to run? We haven't seen that yet. Maybe Honorable Nhial is working on that. He's still. And perhaps in short order, we might see that. But it's very likely that we might not even see that either, because the decision by SSSM, South Sudan Salvation Movement, to create alliance with United People's Army of Secretary General Pagana Moom, with former CDF Paul Malongawan, former SSPDF General Boy Rolnyang, former SSDF Chief of Defense Forces Oya Deng Nhial, and many others, having joined them, having taken South Sudan Salvation Movement and then create alliance with these people, in my view, is going to create skepticism from the people of South Sudan around the capacity of South Sudan Salvation Movement. It's going to make people question the approach taken by Nhial Deng Nhial. I'm not criticizing him for doing so. I'm just saying it is probably not going to help South Sudan Salvation Movement gain the popularity that Nhial used to enjoy. And so I think this party has the potential to do things, above all, to recreate the discourse on South Sudan, but I don't think it is going to be received with the same level of popularity that Nhial had before, now that he has joined these other people. And it doesn't make sense that Nhial would also choose to join a group of political parties that have declared war, unless Nhial himself is saying at his age that he's going back to the bush and fight. and liberate South Sudan through war, through violence. But otherwise, why would you go and join people who have declared war? And he still has to, and he has the right to do it. He's a constitutional right to decide whether you want to pursue your political goals through the barrels of the gun, or you want to do it peacefully and non-violently. That is his choice. I'm just saying that that choice doesn't lend the SSSM the platform and the opportunity to attract people to itself so that the party can be built. That's my view.
Thank you so much, Professor. In fact, we were supposed to come to that questions immediately after the first questions, but still, you will still shed more light on that later on when we come to that. Professor, you have mentioned many things in regard to the decision made and how this political party can shape or reshape the political directions of our country. But Prof, when we come to the questions of Honorable Nhial Deng Nhial forming his own political party, and on the same day he declares joining another alliances, which has already been in existence for the last few years. They have tried to negotiate with the government through different two continents, and nothing seemed to work out. There are some money which were injected there in that piece, and nothing is working out. Kindly, many people tend to believe that Honorable Nhial Deng Nhial has made a mistake. In other words, another said he is too quick to the decisions. He would have formed his party and establish himself first, recruit members, and then after he has wait of how to negotiate with another alliances or another political party. That is where they can come together. And you have mentioned in your response. Kindly, Prof, do you join? Do you agree with the people who say that he has made a mistake and he has right into joining a coalition with people's alliances? Kindly, can you shed more light on that? And why is it mistakes on his aim?
Right. No, in my view, I think he has made that decision too quickly, and that perhaps he should have given his presumed supporters, right? He already has sort of projected himself onto the political landscape of South Sudan through his background, through his actions, being a liberator himself. So he has presumed following in South Sudan. People think that he's been popular, which is why so many people, especially in Bahr Ghazal, his own region, where he has been governor before the peace agreement, before the CPA, Nhial Deng was governor of Bahr Ghazal, all the way from Ural to Awil. And so he has that popularity, and I think it would have been best for him to declare his political movement and then give it a little bit of a moment to see how people are going to react, to see if people will now rush to embracing him. And through that popularity, then he can articulate what the project is, what the political program is, then articulate how he's going to go about it by structuring the party in such a way that makes it inclusive, nationwide, such that it is not simply a party of Bahr Ghazal. It's not a party of Tony, but a party for South Sudan. And but he didn't give himself that time. He simply rushed to saying that in order to give his movement a full force, he had to seek alliance with those other groups of people, other individuals who have broken away from the Splm before. Instead of doing that in such a rash manner, I think he would have taken a little bit of time to gauge the responses and the reactions from South Sudanese about this, because I imagine people would have been jubilant in response to his breakaway from the SPLM. I think that he also made another mistake, which is leaving the country and then declaring his new party outside South Sudan, which means that he was afraid that he might be arrested and detained, and means that if that was his fear, then he was not taking risks. And political decisions of this kind require bravery and a willingness to take risks. Because if he had declared it his party inside South Sudan, it would have definitely come with a big momentum where people would have joined him at the rally, where he could have called for a press conference and announced this, even if that risked being arrested. I think the government would not have done so, because they would have feared that arresting Nhial Deng would simply give him more popularity. So that was another misstep that he made, leaving the country and then declaring his party outside the country. I think, but going forward, we are waiting for three things. One, does his alliance with UPA make the totality of the opposition more powerful and giving it a momentum such that the government in Juba can react to that and seek conversation with them, perhaps even go back to my peace initiative, because the movement of political parties, the alliance of the political parties may have injected a bit of fear into the government in Juba. We don't know. We are waiting for that to see what it will mean. What does it mean that South Sudan Salvation Movement is now a member of UPA, or at least in alliance with them? So that's one going forward. Second, does this political movement now push for intervention from outside, whether it's the US, the UN, the East African countries, UK, Norway, the Troika? Are they now saying that there is an opportunity to push for a transition now that Nhial, is there a project? Is there a kind of Western countries project of Nhial being seen as an alternative voice and potentially an alternative to Salva Kiir? If there is that international backing, perhaps that might accelerate the desire between all South Sudanese leaders, political and military leaders, to rescue their country from outside intervention by quickly declaring a process where they will sit together and dialogue and have a constitutional conversation, which will prevent the country from being, and the political situation in the country from being internationalized anew, which has been a fear many South Sudanese have had, especially political leaders. That is out there. That is a question that we must monitor. The third issue to monitor is whether this decision and the alliance is going to ratchet down the level of ethnic acrimony that is ongoing in the country, especially that Honorable Nhial Deng is now outside the SPLM government. Is that a comment? Is that a comment on what the SPLM government is doing with regards to ethnic divisions and disunity of the country, especially the war in Upper Nile and the subsequent trial of Vice President Dr. Riek Machar? Is that going to contribute to that conversation? I think those are the things that we are watching. Perhaps I can add a fourth thing that we are watching, and that is regarding the dialogue that I was hinting at, which is, have we come to a juncture in our brief history as a country where a constitutional dialogue is long overdue and should happen, where South Sudanese in opposition and in government and in civil society all coalesced around a constitutional conversation where we ask ourselves, what is wrong with our country? Why can't it be stable? Why can't it develop? Why can't we use our resources to welfare of our people? What is wrong with our country? And that fundamental question, if was asked, and we all agree that South Sudanese sit through their representatives and through something similar to the national dialogue, mediated by South Sudanese, maybe people in the church, maybe respected personages like Abel Elier and Bona Malwal and others mediating, Angelo Beda, mediating this dialogue so that people can identify what is wrong with the country and can identify what are the solutions to this problem of the country. And then the results of such a dialogue become foundation for a peace process, foundation for laying down the constitutional order of the country, reforming the country from below, and deciding the political trajectory, including the systems of governance, to be based on this dialogue. Is that possible? I would say it may not be possible because we are too divided, but at the end of the day, that is going to be the only way this country can regain its footing and chart a way forward, is through that dialogue. Because we are tired of war, and war has not resolved anything. That Nhial Deng should go and join a group of people who have declared war is puzzling and rather disappointing.
Thank you so much, Professor, for actually giving comprehensive analysis and also touching base on some historical events and how these two parties or alliances should come together to chart the way forward for the citizens of South Sudan. Our last questions, our viewers, before we give you a chance to ask some questions either from Clubhouse. We are left with one more question. Professor, on 17th of this month, the letter came from Greater Tone Community Union condemning the decision made by Honorable Nhial Deng Nhial. To your own thoughts, do you think was that the right thing to do, condemning their sons of breaking away from the SPLM, or what were some grounds of them condemning him, yet he has already made his political decision? What is your reactions? And on the same note too, we have seen the Tone Graduates Union also reacted toward that, pushing it back to the community. What is your take?
Well, that letter that condemnation letter was signed by somebody called Andrew Kwaj Mayol. Andrew Kwaj Mayol is an old guard. He's one of the oldest politicians of Tonj, graduating from University of Khartoum in the 70s and becoming involved in the regional government, and later on moving to Khartoum and held positions. So that letter, in my view, was his personal opinion. Others may have been with him in the background, people like my own uncle, Louis Anay Madud Kwendit, and other leaders, perhaps people like my cousin Mayingayi, other Tonj leaders who felt that this was an opportunity for them to offer to the government under Salva Kiir the chance to isolate Nhial Deng in exchange for some goodies, perhaps positions, perhaps recognition or maybe money. I think this decision, that letter was a non-starter. That condemnation was a personal endeavor, very akin to the way politics is done in South Sudan these days, where you have to sell somebody in order for you to gain something, or to have somebody you can climb on their shoulders so that you can get recognition by the powers that be. So that letter was really in bad form and was, in my view, it was part of the worst kind of prostitution. Mainly because it did not solve any problem. It did not address why Nhial did what he did. And I think whether you like what Nhial did or didn't, whether you support the government or you don't, the reality is that this has triggered a dialogue, and we should talk about it and should discuss it openly rather than condemn it, because condemning it doesn't help. Then, to my point, that letter was then followed by another well-written letter, supposedly by a union of graduates from Tonj. And I could see some of the fingers on that letter. I could see some of the political leaders of Tonj being behind it. And so, and I think that was a letter that was in a better shape to say that the decision that Nhial made was his personal decision, was his political decision. It did not involve the people of Tonj. The people of Tonj should not be the ones who say whether he did wrong or he did right. The only thing the people of Tonj could do is either join Nhial or resist Nhial based on the political opinion, based on individual decisions. But for Andrew Kwajmayol to write a letter on behalf of Tonj people, knowing full well that this was not a position born out of consultation, was a non-starter in my view.
Thank you so much, Professor, for giving us your opinions in regard to the letter written by the Tonj community and the way you put it in regard to the letter pushback from the graduates of Tonj as a community. To our viewers, Clubhouse, Abraham Adit and Isaac Tiang, I don't know if there are some questions there, and if not, or before that, I just want to ask some few questions or even two, so that the professor also shed more light and put his thoughts around that. Professor, we have the special court, the trial of the first vice president, Dr. Riek Machar, which began on 22nd of September. It's now almost a month, and citizens listen to it very keenly, and we are following it. What is your thoughts in regard to such event taking place, and what do you expect the outcome of that court, and what will be the implications of such outcome? On that note, you will also tackle the issue of the economy. What are the possibilities of rescuing this economy? Currently, things are really hard in that country, and people can go 2 days or a day without having a meal, and citizens are frustrated. So this is my last question to you, Professor, and you will take your time to tackle those two before I yield it back to the Clubhouse and to the comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, with regards to the trial of Dr. Riek, the fact that it has dragged on this far without any tangible outcome is indicative of the challenges that the government is going to face in pinning any crime on Dr. Riek. I think it's going to be extremely difficult. The evidence is thin, and the trial itself is a more political trial than a legal one. And I think the best thing that could come out of this eventually will be the president bringing an end to it and pardoning Dr. Riek. I think this should be done now than wait. the president should simply start dialogue, a political dialogue with Dr. Riek. And this dialogue should be in front of all the South Sudanese. My best dream would be for our president to release Riek Machar and travel with him throughout the country to say that we have reconciled for the welfare of South Sudan. We are going to take our own political disagreements and grievances and append them to the welfare, to the greater welfare of South Sudan. And that we would now work together to rebuild the trust of our people in government once again and the power of the state. And that on the basis of this, we can plan for a transition where our president could declare his wish to exit power at some point and give us a timeline for that process. I think that would be the most face-saving for him, the president himself, and it will be the way to save the country as a whole. Because other than that, we will keep pushing for trial. Eventually, if we pin some kind of a crime on Riek Machar, a crime that we all know is very difficult to do, we are sowing the seeds of disunity, further disintegration of the country, something that is not going to be good for anyone, wherever political side you are on. Continued trial and resulting in continued division of the country is good to no one. Especially that the reason why people are suffering today is partly to do with these disagreements. These rivalries have caused so much destruction to our resources. Right now, in the state of buying one more gun, we should invest the money of that gun in doing some basic things, even registering the newborns. South Sudan does not register its new birth. So the country doesn't even know that you have been born. And if you don't know that a child was born in a Kot near Rumbek or in Maper or in Luanyagur, and the government doesn't know that there is a new human being, a new citizen has been born, you cannot plan for their welfare. And so the economy is failing because there is no processes that focus on the welfare of people. Today, people are discussing the new order from the commercial banks in Juba that even if you have your money in the bank because there is no liquidity, you can only get $30,000 SSP out of your bank account today. And 30,000 in South Sudan today is just one meal for one person. So how are our families going to live going forward without liquidity, without income, and with every citizen waking up every day, and if they have some money to their name, instead of put it in the bank, they keep it in their house. We have moved back to banking under our mattresses. And that is a situation that cannot be sustained, and people will die. People are dying. Even in Juba, people starve today. And it's a result of the political acrimonies between President Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar and all the rest of their supporters. That is what is causing the suffering of the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Indeed, it's something shocking, and citizens are worried that if you have money, you cannot even have access to your money in the bank. And when we look at the historical issues of the economy and the collapse of the country, they always start in that angle. Mm-hmm. As long as people do not have access to their money, then they will resort to unthinkable issues to do for them to give out what is burning inside their heart and their mind. Let's pray together as citizens of the country, and let's keep talking, as you mentioned earlier. If we don't talk, and then it will be hard for us to find the solutions. And if we cannot listen to each other, then nobody will listen to us at the end of the day. I will yield back to the studio. Isaac Paul, if you are there, please give us update if there are some questions under the comment section so that Professor will tackle them. Abraham Adit on the side of the clubhouse. If you have 2 to 3 people, kindly, this chance is yours before we let Professor Madud Jok take the rest and also to attend to some of his Sunday activities. Yep, to our viewers, while we are waiting for Abraham Adit in Clubhouse, Isaac Temple in the studio, allowed me to let Professor tackle one issue before we let him go. And meanwhile, we will still have another discussions with the actors, especially the political actors of our country. But the challenge, most of them are hard to come and speak due to the fear of an unknown, because nobody knows. If you speak in Juba, people are always afraid whether they will wake up in the next morning alive in their rooms or in another cell. So I think that could be some of the reason most of our politicians don't want to speak and come to the public domain such as this. Professor, there is one thing that we need you to wrap your mind with in regard to your expertise, your experience in life, and you have read several books, you have met with the different people, you have lived in different countries. What will be the implications of what is happening now in regard to the special court? Because you said earlier, the only hope and the only things that you are praying for is for President Kiir to pardon Dr. Riak, come out and they have political dialogue, and there afterwards they should launch a countrywide political tour so that they could have political discussions with our people and our people seeing them moving together. But do you think President Kiir has that ability currently to think beyond what is happening in Freedom Hall?
Well, yes. President Kiir is actually a compassionate leader, and I think if he stays sleepless at night, I think it is about the suffering of the people of South Sudan. There's no question about it. So he has that capacity to think in terms of the welfare of the people. I know that he like any one of us, he has his own demons, including taking grudges and holding grudges forever. So he might not be willing to forgive Riak for what he may think Riak has done. It's not lack of capacity, it's a lack of will. And that is the problem of South Sudan. It's even when people know what is the right thing to do, they don't want to do it because they lack that will. And so I think I doubt that President Kiir would take my advice. But I have to speak it so that there is a record that people have called for this kind of thing, even if he doesn't do it. But what is going to be the outcome based on my observations of this process, but also my experience in other countries? Yesterday, Raila Odinga, Amolo Odinga was buried in Bondo in Lowland in Western Kenya. And this is a man who has spent all his life trying to improve the welfare of Kenyans, even at the risk of being arrested and detained, the risk of being exiled, even exiled at one point. That is the kind of political leadership a country like ours require. And so if the president is not willing to chart a way of unity and a way of stability and a way of reconciliation and dialogue, let all the other leaders, such as Nhial Deng, now that he has decided to chart this way, let him become another Raila Odinga in South Sudan, push for change and democratization of the country, even at the risk of his own life. Because that is the measure of a politician, the measure of a man, the measure of any human being is what you do for others. And if he has really dedicated himself to the liberation of this country since he was young, he should end his life eventually working for the same cause as Odinga did. And President Kiir should also develop tolerance for people who oppose him and push back, such that the results of the trial of Dr. Riak don't become the igniting power for our confrontation along ethnic lines or regional lines. Our people have suffered enough, and we are tired of confrontation and conflict. Let us try the way of peace, the way of dialogue.
Thank you so much, Professor. You have given the very good examples of the late former Prime Minister of Kenya, Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. He's a man that has given his life, his passion, his desire, his dream, and everything he has for the service of humanity and the country called Kenya. And many of us mourn him across the continent of Africa and beyond, simply because of his role that he played in that political body in Kenya. Thank you for that call. I will yield it back to Isaac Tieng. I'm told there are 2 questions in Clubhouse. Thereafter, we will wrap up our conversation. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Majok Makur and Professor Jok. I got 2 questions in the comment section here. One's come from Achil Atanya Achil. It says, Prof, my question is, the youth are divided based on this political climate. What would be your say on this division happening among the youth, because youth are the victim of the crisis in South Sudan?
Yes, that should I take another one or I'll go with that?
Yeah. The second one is from Arel Nhial Deng. Can you recommend it that South Sudanese should have to support Honorable Nhial Deng Nhial if they want their well-being success? Prof. JMJ. I think that's what he meant. These are the 2 questions you need to answer. Yeah, and then we will be going. I have a question. Yeah, I will come down to Clubhouse. This is from the comment section. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that question about the youth of South Sudan being the engine of the future, I think allowing themselves to be divided along ethnic lines is a tragedy. Here we have a country which is for everyone, and the leadership of this country is being fought over by our elders, by liberation elders. They are fighting over it. And instead of using ideology and using their political programs and economic programs to attract people to their side, they agitate people to fight it out. I think the mistakes of our leaders should not be emulated by the youth. So instead of you going and fighting your age mates on behalf of political leaders, I think it is extremely important that the youth rally around their future. They rally around their welfare. If you are members of the SPLM youth, then you should push your party to do that which you think is going to serve the young people across the country, instead of being pushed to fight each other on behalf of the political leaders whose political landscape is basically coming to a sunset and leaving you in crisis and mayhem is a function of the young people not being enlightened enough. It's a function of young people not having prepared themselves to fight for their own future. When Raila Odinga was first detained, he was 37 years old. At that time, he had already made his mark on the political trajectory of that country. Here we have in South Sudan men who are in their 40s calling themselves youth and fighting over community associations on behalf of other political leaders instead of fighting to bring change in their country as a whole so that they themselves can have opportunity to lead that country. When Barack Obama became president of the free world, president of the United States, he was 48 years old. And there are 48-year-olds in Juba today fighting over crumbs instead of uniting people for the welfare of young people generally. I think the onus is on the youth. You cannot blame the old people for marginalizing you, for sidelining you, for pushing you, because you haven't gone to take it. Political power is not given. Political rights are never given. They have to be taken. And you don't take them by gun. You take them by activism, by organizing them yourselves into alliances, into political parties, and into associations and civil society, so that you speak up. You champion what the leaders have done wrong and say we have to fix it. That is how you rally people around a political future. You cannot change this country by lining up behind political leaders who have already led this country into the ground. On the second question, it's related to the second question about with people being this divided, can there be any a success if the youth support Nhial Deng, for example? Do I recommend that people should rally behind Nhial? Sure, it's not at the end of the day, it is not a decision to be made for others, a decision you have to make yourself, right? So read the 18-page declaration that Nhial has published, listen to his audio remarks, ask him questions. If you are in Kenya or in Ethiopia or wherever Nhial may be today, call him to come and address your young people in Nairobi or in Addis or in London, wherever he may be, or in Kampala. Invite him to come and explain himself before you people. And then if he does, you can decide at that point whether he has your right, whether he has your welfare in his heart. And if he does, in your view, you follow him. This is not a decision that can be made by someone else. It's a decision you only can make. If you are asking me whether I will follow Nhial Deng, I will say, I want to listen to him. I want to see his program. And until I see his program, there is no basis for me to join him.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof. Now we are heading to the clubhouse. We have the one, Moranyar. I think you have a question. You can open your mic and ask Prof.
Yes.
Welcome, Wal.
Hang on. I don't know why my speaker is not picking up. What's going on in Bluetooth? Okay, I'll go ahead. Let's test this. Do you hear him, Prof?
No.
Yes. I don't know. Does he hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. Is that Wal Peter Moranya?
Yes. Yeah, that's me. That's me. Just put it. Yes. Yes.
Good to hear you, sir.
Yes, for your explanation here was very good. Was very national in nature and very patriotic, by the way. Not biased, nothing. But I still have some concern in your explanation too, and some of your suggestions. especially the suggestion that President Kiir should decree an amnesty to Dr. Riek Machar, cancel the ongoing trial, and perhaps tour the nation with Dr. Riek Machar for what you call the welfare of the public. And I cringe when I hear you saying that. Can the justice be sacrificed, Professor Jokmurid? Can the justice be sacrificed for the sake of a welfare? And what more would be of our welfare as Sudanese people aside from justice being delivered to us? Because the 250 South Sudanese sons who were massacred in Nasser, who would be held accountable for? Thank you very much.
All right,
thank you.
So
that is a very good question. That whether people should suspend justice in the greater interests of the rest of us, in the rest of the country. This is not the first time such a question has confronted South Sudan. The Liberians experienced this at the end of their war. Sierra Leone experienced that question. At the end of the war in Angola, such questions were asked. Whether we should insist on justice at all costs, even if that cost means the rest of the country going up in fire. And some people chose one or the other. The countries who chose to pursue justice at all costs are still in conflict as we speak. Countries that chose to sweep justice and atrocities and all the mayhem that has been caused, to sweep them under the rug for the time being and say, let us prioritize peace and unity and let justice be pursued later on once we have stabilized our country and we have strengthened our institutions, and let the citizens of this country then open court cases against whomever they think has aggressed them or killed them or committed atrocities. Let that search for justice be championed by victims and survivors, but not put justice ahead of peace. Putting justice ahead of peace is tantamount to putting the cart before the horse, in my view. And so I'm not saying that people should be kept hostage, that the entire country and its justice system be kept hostage in order to achieve political stability. When you put it that way, it is offensive and people might not like it in the immediate. But if you weigh that against the potential for more crises, more war, more destruction, I think even the families of the victims will say, let us postpone the trial and build our institutions, and championing justice will become the second step in that process, so that people, individuals and families can pursue justice in a stable country. That is what I would say. I don't belittle the massacres. I don't belittle the pain they have caused. But there have been a lot of pain. And this pain and destruction will continue if we don't prioritize dialogue and peace and stability before we pursue justice.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much, Prof. and Wal Moranyar. Let keep moving forward to start.
Brother, later on, give me a chance later on. I have a question to Professor too.
Yeah, I know. I'm coming to you now. I think you will come after Ustaz Kunjok. Kunjok, are you there?
My turn?
Yes, it's your turn.
Yeah, I'm here, yeah.
Yep, thank you. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. All right. Yes, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, Dr. Jok. It's Tom Kunjok from Canada. Last time we spoke, you were still in South Sudan. Welcome back. My question is something that, my question is something on the line like, would it have been more meaningful, or would have more weight if this declaration was done through the SPLM senior membership, those of Dr. Waniga, those of General Kwame, those of Daniel Awinakot, and so on and so forth. If this was a joint statement in Juba, do you think would have carried more weight than just being outside the country and also joining his comrades who have already taken up arms? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. I think generally, if it was declared in Juba, it would have carried more weight for sure, because the reactions from the people would have been immediate. But whether it would have been more weighty if it had been organized together by some of the prominent political leaders and members of the political bureau, definitely. I think it would have spoken very clearly about the challenges facing the party. But we have already heard their voices. I mean, we have heard Daniel Werakut saying that we have failed, right? So his voice is out there. We've heard Kwalmanyang say the same thing. We have heard other leaders speaking and grumbling, like Mark Nyepoch has spoken before, saying that the SPLM is no more. The new leaders who have joined have also already confronted challenges. They are not speaking publicly, but we know that they are unhappy. At the very least, why is it that the SPLM political bureau doesn't meet? I think this is a question that we can already glean from the answer to that question, the fact that there is overall dissatisfaction within the political party, within the ruling party. Now, would it have been more meaningful if Nhial had mobilized them and made a declaration? But what would have that done? Because it would not have carried any other significant action. It would not have triggered any action from the chairman of the party, because the chairman of the party has now become the party itself, and the party has become him. So this party is going down. There is no anywhere else the SPLM is going but decline, because we don't hear the party on the fundamental issues. The party is not talking about the destruction of the country's resources. The party is not talking about even some simple things like the videos we are watching of our people being kicked out of South Sudan and their children being detained. Our people being massacred by both parties to the war in Sudan, and we have no position on this, let alone we have no reaction to rescue them in some ways. We are simply sacrificing them so that our oil can continue to flow. That is something that a political party that was a liberation party has to confront head on and in public. Since they are not doing it, I don't see them being, I don't see the SPLM being any more meaningful today than any other party. And the leaders should speak.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Prof. Let's move forward, Pastor, to wrap it up quickly. We got another question from Kolakol. Is next, and we got two more, and that's it. Kolakol, are you there? You can just open your mic and weigh in your question. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. And greeting to you, Professor Jok. The first time that I met you, I just was the book that you wrote. I think it could have been your first book. I found it in Nairobi in a store. I didn't buy it, but it was like having a heart as a cover, Yes. And that's when I, come across your name. But I forget the title of that book. So my question is, since we have now known that the liberation that we have undertaken at the time, which is the mother party called SPLM, had fractured, it had liberated the country, turned the country to be bushes now, pray to everybody. And now they are running away all of this, and they cannot come together. My question to you, in your opinion, if they cannot unite or form a formidable party that people of South Sudan can have a second thought of which now, don't you think that we are being made as a condom for the elites of our country? And for and sorry for using that term, I'm just saying our elites or educated are using communities to further their own aspiration, but not the welfare of the people of South Sudan. In your opinion, Nhial Deng Nhial now moved out, and he has his own party. And there are so many political parties outside the country. What do you think we, the common man, and I'm talking including you, should we support it now to be a salvation of our political discourse as we speak today? Salva Kiir has failed us. Splm has failed us. What is the alternative going forward now? What can we do, in your opinion? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that is the 14 million people question. What do we do? Indeed, I think I made some suggestions earlier on, one of which is that if the current leaders still have the heart for the country and for the welfare of their people, then the best thing for them to do is for us to start dialogue. I was suggesting that one person be identified to go around and talk to every political leader who is outside the country and who is in opposition within the country, and ask them what their diagnosis is for the problems of South Sudan. What is the problem of South Sudan in your view? Otherwise, the reason why you are in opposition is because you think the government is not doing right. So tell us what you think is the issue. And then tell us what do you think is the solution to that issue. And we go to each South Sudanese leader, political, military, opposition, government. We go one by one and chronicle their answers and use those as the foundation for dialogue, for us to sit and talk. And part of the results of this dialogue will become law, will become the constitution of the country. The same way that, or at least become the foundation from which to make the law, to make the constitution of the country. But above all, prioritizing being able to talk and solve problems around the table rather than rushing to the bush with guns all the time. Our country is dying from within. Literally, our citizens are dying. But the country as a whole is dying because it is being encroached upon from left and right. Even Ethiopians, our former allies, are now said to be taking some parts of South Sudan in the east. Kenya is moved in, go all the way to Nadapal. Uganda is moving to Nimuli, to Kajukeji. And all the rest of our neighbors have free access to our country. Even RSF is having access to gold in Raja. So the country is dying. And I think, are we going to continue to fight each other along ethnic lines? Or can one of us just stick their neck out and say, let me listen to all of you, let me write down what you are saying, and make this as a foundation for our dialogue, for a constitutional dialogue? I think that would be one way to do it. Another, of course, is for each community to come to its own sense of agreement that we are going to pursue our rights politically. We are no longer going to fight. But of course, many of these communities are being aggressed by the very government. So much of the violence that is going on in South Sudan now is a state violence. What do our leaders want, those in the government? Why are they pursuing political goals and political objectives through the barrel of the gun when we know that nobody is going to win in the end? On the contrary, we are all going to be losers. So I think going back into our own communities to have a dialogue among ourselves and say, let us pursue our rights through dialogue, and then reaching out to their neighbors and the political leaders in all their political formations be pushed and persuaded to seek dialogue with the government, and the government to reach out to the opposition. I think that would be the only way. It is now an existential issue. It is whether South Sudan will be or will not be. And every citizen in power or outside the power should really be asking that question, or be able to understand that question, that it is the country itself that will either exist or will not exist if we continue along this line.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Prof. I think we got two people, Tontat and Sudani. Do you guys have a question to Prof? Or I go straight to the question from the clubhouse messaging? Tontat, are you there? Okay, Tontat is on the phone. Let us start with Sudani. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. Do you have a question?
Actually, I was having a question, but I have the same view as Professor.
Yeah. All right. Then no worries. If your question is being asked or covered by Prof, it's all right. Thank you so much for that. Let's go to Ambassador Salman Dandara. Salman, welcome to Lagos State Media and South Sudan Eagle Media. Do you have a question to Prof?
أول حاجة أنا بنشكر لاجي ستيت ميديا كتير. تحية لك كبير يا بروف. أنا عجبني جدا الحل اللي أنت قدمته. يعني إحنا مشكلتنا إنه عندنا مشكلة لكن ما قاعدين نقدم حلول، بنحاول نحلل المشكلة. المشكلة ده حصل كيف وليه حصل، لكن الحل بتاعه شنو؟ ما في زول قاعد يقدم حل. أنا كيفت جدا من الحل بتاعك اللي أنت قدمته إنه الرئيس يعفي الرياض ويعمل بو تور في الجنوب عشان يعزز السلام وسط الناس. على that idea. but انا داير نضيف حاجه ونسالك، هل بيكون ممكن؟ لانه المبادره ده من الرئيس براو ما بيجي. I think انا هنا من بحر الغزال الكبرى، انا this is my suggestion. ده اقتراح بتاعي. نجيبوا إلدس من لوا، من فرتيت، من مونجا، من إلدس، هم يقعدوا مع الرئيس، يكونوا مديريتة، يقعدوا مع الرئيس ويقعدوا مع رياك، وهم اللي يساعدوا النفرين دول يعملوا تور في جنوب سوا معهم بالمساعدة بتاعهم، وبعد كده يعلن سلام شامل على مستوى الجنوب كله. كل الناس اللي طلعوا برا، كل الناس يجوا يقعدوا. افتكر نحن بنكون ساعدنا الرئيس، لانه الرئيس ذاته زي ما قلت الويلي. المشكله ما مشكله بتاعت انه ما ممكن، لكن البوليتيكال ويل بقى مشكله. اوكي، البوليتيكال ويل بقى مشكله، احنا نديو البوليتيكال ويل ده، نديو الويل ده لنا ناس بحر الغزال الكبرى. This is my idea. I don't know. رايك شنو في الموضوع ده لو قدرنا نعمل كده؟ شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا جزيلا امباسادور سلمان دندرا. اتفضل بروف.
شكرا امباسادور، كلام جميل جدا وانا انبسطت شديد انت you join us here. Yes, I think it would be extremely helpful if the president can hear from communities, because part of the problem that we face is that our political leaders at the top are disconnected from the masses. They are not reaching the president is not reaching them. And the intermediaries and the men and women in the middle are not facilitating this properly. I think there are people, for example, if we talk about Greater Bahr Ghazal, we can really start with some government officials that are ministers in the government from Western Bahr Ghazal, from Warab, from Northern Bahr Ghazal, from lakes. who can bring these attitudes to the president and saying, President, you need to talk to your people. Like, even when tragedies happen, the president doesn't go to visit his people. I remember when there was an oil tanker that blew up in Mundri. Was it Mundri or Maridi? I think it was Maridi a couple of years ago, and killed 200 people. It took 2 weeks before the State House issued a statement of condolence to the people. The same thing happens every time there is a massacre in Jonglei or in Unity or in Pibor, what have you. The president doesn't go to sympathize with his people and give them a sense that they have a father. If we can imagine the president being sort of a father of the nation, everybody expects him to come and offer his sympathies to them directly. If the president is physically weak and unable to travel that far anymore, let the president delegate people, let the president also record messages by video and show them to people on TV, all of that. So yes, I think if we, let's say Magni Poch, who is the member of political bureau from WOW, let's Rizik Hassan now has become a member, they can ask the president, our greater Barghazal is divided. Like now there's war between SSPDF and some people from Luo, just south of Wow town on the way to Tonj. Terrible, terrible things are happening. And at a time when the Luo community have really contributed massively to the liberation of the country, and they should not be seen as enemy of the state anymore. And so I think the communities sending envoys to the president and say, the president, we want you to come here to talk to us, to address us, so that you also give us a chance to tell you, to articulate to you what are the problems we face. Your middlemen and women are not doing it for us. So you come, we invite you to come to address us in Wow Stadium and let us talk. I think that would be really an extremely useful exercise in our effort to mend our political wounds.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. I got two questions from the Clubhouse comment section. One from Mulana Goodwine has a question. That question was, I think, directed to Majok Makur. He said, okay, can you ask about the new development regarding a BA 2005 CPA protocols and separation of South Sudanese children from their parents by displaced Port Sudan government? I think you answered part of that question before, but second one is here from the Fox says, question from the Clubhouse here. I have a question to Prof. Jok. Why is Honorable Nhial Deng's declaration considered more significant than the departure of other groups from the SPLM in the past?
Okay, good question. I will start with that one. I think part of the reason why Nhial's departure is being given so much weight, I think it is to do with the sort of a silent understanding that Nhial is together with President Kiir because they come from the same region. He's one of the long-serving members of the political bureau. He's even a blood relation. They are relatives. And so the fact that he left and criticized Kiir and even called for a kind of an uprising against the government is significant in the sense that if the closest people to the president himself are the ones leaving as well, what do you expect of all the others? So I think that is really part of the reason why this is given that weight. I think it is also more weighty because the others, let's say former Secretary General Pagana Mom, when he left There didn't seem to be so much turmoil about it. When Paul Malone left, there wasn't so much row around it. When Stephen Boy Rolnyang left, or others who have left, not just the political party, but the military and the political class, they did not meet with such weight as it is being given today to the departure of Nhial Deng. And part of the reason is that those departures actually happened in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of the country being at war. And so already their departure was imminent and expected, since there was already a war, and also because Paul Malone was fired from being CDF and leaving made some people unhappy. Why would you leave? Why would you rebel just because you've been removed from a position of power? Did you expect to be in that power for life? And so when people are fired and they leave, people see them as just people who are holding grudges because they lost power, not because of any ideological, not because of any desire to bring change. But Nhial's departure, followed by a declaration, both spoken and written, suggests that Nhial is interested in solving the problems that pushed him out, whereas the others didn't. I think that would be my explanation. But I think all of them combined, all of those departures combined, since the start of the war in 2013, have amounted to this political turmoil we are in, and they have weighed down the country. And obviously, if they continue unaddressed and unresolved, this country will be no more. The country is dying slow death, and we should not allow a situation where our leaders simply leave without offering solutions. Because if they do, first of all, if they have taken money, secondly, if they have contributed to violence, and they are now campaigning the entire country, then of course we become unhappy with that. But if you are offering a solution, you can leave the SPLM. Leave the SPLM, so long as you are trying to help the country regain its footing again. A good one asking about the situation in ABA. I think this is a fundamental question, and as you said, Isaac, I hinted at it earlier. The question of, first of all, there is that war between Ngok and Twitch. And that is a tragic conflict, which nobody expected would happen between two sisterly communities. And so that conflict alone needs to be resolved. And then the issue of Abyei as an occupied territory, I don't call it contested because there's no contest. I call it occupied because that is essentially what Sudan has done to a land that is South Sudanese. I would say the recent appointment of the Vice President, Dr. Benjamin Bolmel, to be the envoy for all Abyei issues combined, including the war with Twitch, but also the fate of Abyei with regards to Sudan's occupation of it. I think this might bring a new momentum to revisiting the discussion between Khartoum, well, Port Sudan now, since Al-Burhan is still based in Port Sudan, and to discuss these things openly and see where it goes. Because Sudan is confronting its own wars and its own existential challenges. Maybe now that they are in that position is advantageous to South Sudan to try to solve the problem of Abyei and regain control of Abyei in exchange for us not being party to that war. Maybe if that dialogue is reopened and discussed, South Sudan might offer certain things in exchange for Abyei coming back full force to into the ranks of South Sudan. And I think Abyei will continue to be a sore spot between Sudan and South Sudan. I think if Sudan and South Sudan ever go back to war one day, I bet it is going to be due to the Abyei crisis. And so now is the time to solve that. Now that Sudan is in crisis, perhaps South Sudan can offer something in exchange for Abyei. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. I have 2 more people, and that will be the end of our show tonight. Patrick Ball, are you there? And we have
No,
Young Nation.
rather, Dr. Nhial on a comment section later on address him. He has a question for Professor Joe. Thank you.
All right, then no worries. Patrick Ball and Young Nation. Patrick, are you there? All right, let's go to Young Nation. Young Nation, do you have a question to Professor?
Yes, thank you very much. Mine is not going to be a question because a lot of people have asked questions. I just want to make a little bit of comment and to see the reaction of Professor Jock. If you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
All I want to see from him is my reaction. First, let me say this, Professor. Let me thank you for offering your time, and let me thank your host, my name, Jock, for doing that. Professor, I think, to me personally, because I'm one of the people who is vocal on the social media, and my position is very clear. You would even know from the way I'm talking. I think time has come for Riek Machar to face justice, because Riek Machar, throughout the history, had been entertained extremely. First by late Dr. Garang and even President Salva Kiir as President of the Republic. In 2018, when the agreement was signed between him and the government, SPLM-IO was in a very bad shape, diplomatically, politically, and militarily. But he was accommodated because of the goodwill from President Salva Kiir. But Riek Machar seems to be stubborn politically, if I may put it, because he was sitting in Juba with President Salva Kiir, but at the same time he was entertaining instability, especially in Nasser, the issue of the White Army. So the reason why he is now in the prison, let me say house arrest, and is going through court process, it is because of his connection to the event in Nasser as SPLM-IO leader, funding illegal activities that led to the killing of more than 250 SSPDF soldiers who were disrespected, and the killing of the general. So President Salva Kiir, as head of the state, is right, okay, to take the action that he did. That is number one. Because, you see, Professor, the way I'm saying, the reason I'm saying this is that I would agree with one said very clear before, that justice must never be sacrificed. Okay, the problem is Riek Machar is not seeing that whatever he's doing in the country as an alternative, okay, to any established political organization like SPLM under Garang and South Sudan government under Kiir is not working, because his political ideas are built on Wundangism, the way I look at it. Because this issue of Wundang is having a lot of impact on Riek Machar. That is what I want to say about Riek Machar. Finally, because I want to make it brief, Honorable Nhial Deng Nhial is free, because that freedom is even granted in the Constitution. Is free to exercise his political freedom. But violence is not acceptable. If he were to choose to be violent, of course, the government of South Sudan must deal with him just like others. But if he were to act peacefully, he's free. So I want to see your reaction from that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Majong Dipir, Young Nation. Prof, for that.
Thank you, Majok. Yes, I do follow you too, and I know your ideas, which I also appreciate very much. Of course, South Sudan as a country run by a government has every constitutional right to arrest and try any citizen, whether you are in power or out of power. It is the right of a state to bring you to book if the state believes that you have contravened its laws or have committed a crime. That is absolutely a fundamental right of the state. In fact, it is the obligation of the state to try to use the full force of the state to respond to acts of criminality or aggression or any number of those things. And so I don't take it lightly that it is the state has the right to do this. My issue, and I agree with you. If we come to finding Riek Machar guilty and demonstrate with evidence, then perhaps the government of South Sudan will have really established the supremacy of the law, being pursued unfettered and not through political lenses. That this was a purely legal issue. The trial was advertised, was broadcast, and everybody followed it. The evidence was there for everybody to see. The South Sudanese and the international community, they have been persuaded with evidence. I think this will be a milestone for South Sudan to now simply establish itself as a democratic republic in the community of nations. I think that one we should definitely pursue and demonstrate. And since the trial is already underway, the government should stick to the evidence and not politicize that process. So now that we are already here, let us see where it goes. My worry is if the trial does not show evidence, and that in the end the court decision is going to be a political one, then you have sowed the seed of continued disunity of the country. I think that is my worry. Okay. With regard to Nhial Deng Nhial, of course, I agree with you, and I think I mentioned earlier that his choice to join groups that are already that have already declared war on South Sudan is wrong-headed in my view. If he's joining them in order to create a momentum and pressure government so that the government can sit at the peace table, then I think we can grant him that right. That I am simply in alliance with these groups, but I am not pursuing my political objectives through war. That himself he will have to he has to articulate, as I said earlier, that what we don't know about Nhial's future in this new political dispensation, what we don't know is what his political program is going to be. So maybe he's working on it. When we see it, and we see him denouncing violence, and we see him pursuing political goals through dialogue and through activism and through recruitment of people and pushing for elections such that the people of South Sudan decide who will become their next president, then I think he has every right to do so. And we should grant him that benefit of the doubt.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Prof. And Majuk. I have the last question here from the Clubhouse comments, and we're left with the 2 minutes only to end the show. From Dr. Nhial Deng says, please share my question. Is the reunification of the SPLM a way to correct cause to reclaim the government, the movement, founding ideals and restore sense of national purpose? Or has the time come to let it go altogether and imagine new path towards saving the country?
Yeah, I think that is a good question. Should we pursue reunification or should we let the SPLM die its natural death?
Yeah.
Obviously, I would be on the side of reunification. But reunification for what purpose? Would the SPLM reunify in order to go back to the ideals of building a democratic state, a prosperous country? Or are they unifying simply so that they can take back power and use power to loot the country, use power to kill people, use power to create autocracy as they have done so far? Then, of course, there will be no need for unity. I think it was Nhial Deng who said before that when the SPLM unite, they loot us. When they disunite or disagree, they kill us. So who is interested in unity of SPLM? If that unity is simply to regain power that can be used to benefit in a few, nobody. I think if that is the case, and that will be demonstrated by the leaders who unify, if they reunite and demonstrate to us that their mission is welfare of the people of South Sudan, we will go with it. But if they reunify and go back to the same deal that has created this current situation, this has killed the country, then of course the people of South Sudan should wish the SPLM to go to the museum once and for all.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. We have come now to 2 hours already in this discussion. I would like to thank those who raised their comments in Clubhouse and in the comment section in the Facebook and YouTube. Thank you. If you send in your question and it's not read out, it might be covered already in other comments by the Prof. That's the reason we didn't pull it up. So we say thank you. Prof, we give you a microphone to yield us your last remarks for closing. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakeside Media and Eagle Media, and thank you for participants who have come. And all I can say to us, to ourselves as South Sudanese, is that we may be in the diaspora, some of us, but we really have only one country, and that is South Sudan. So let us not wish our country death and suffering. Let us work and do everything we can do in our own individual capacity to ensure that South Sudan is united and South Sudan is developed and prosperous. It is not only the leaders who build the country. It is all the citizens of that country through their individual actions that can lead to a development of a country like ours. Our country is blessed with resources. We shouldn't have to suffer and die from misuse of those resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you, everybody watching the live shows. We'll catch up again in the same time or the different time. We come up with other people that we have sent the invitation out to come in here for interview. We may be coming in the next few days, even including we wrote a letter to Honorable Nhial. If he can accept our invitation, he might come in here. Thank you. Have a good day, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are tuning in. May God bless all of you. May God bless the Republic of South Sudan. Thank you. Have a good day.
Kontiara okin you, achiliu, kon you ore ne runga kontiara okin you, achiliu, toyina piai wala rumbe, kain ping William, toyina will wala pibor, kain ping William, toyin Juba, Palatori. Yo, in Ping William, in Benti, wala kwaju, kaya wow, in Ping William, in Mal. kal wala pinyaram kayin ping William
Pandile leg steady na nyam baiban Penyara wiri na nyam wawadia Pindile leg steady na nyam baiban Penyara wiri na nyam wawadia Ina bulwerin Imbulwe leken Wina bulwe le jam Wina bulwe pai Anyoda gareden Kagetiang poltok Agareden Mabo Kutiang poltok Kubolo makur Kumajang makur Abere medit Kaganyo ba Kabino pinom Anyoda gareden Kagetiang poltok Agareden Mabo Kutiang poltok Kubolo makur Kumajang makur Abere medit Kaganyo ba Kabino pinom Atijal dungajwer Abu jajwir Abu yeloy Abu jajwir Abu yeloy Bu jajwir Babijan Amerika Abu jajwir Babijan China Abu jajwir Babijan London Abu jajwir Babijan Dubai Abu jajwir Abu yeloy
Toyina piay wala rumbe kayin ping William Toyina will wala pibor kayin ping William Toyin Juba Malatori ayam yo kayin ping William Toyin Benti wala kwaju kaya wow kayin ping William